Why would you do that? Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Artistically Black, the continuing conversation of the expansiveness of the Black community, the love and labor of art, and the connection between the two. I am your host, Dannielle Hutchinson, and I am so very excited for today's show. So let me get myself together. We have a wonderful guest this afternoon on our pre Father's Day episode. A man who has taught me so many things throughout my life. He taught me to ask questions, he taught me to eat lunch with others, which I did not do today. But I will try again tomorrow, and to do what you have to do now so that you can do what you want to do later. I know him. I love him. He is my father, Daryl Hutchinson Sr. Please come on out. It's my daddy.
Hello.
Hi, Daddy. Welcome to the
Hi there.
show.
Thank you,
How you
Dannielle.
doing?
Glad to be here. I'm doing pretty good,
Excellent.
thank God. Pretty good.
Excellent.
How
Excellent.
are
Well,
you?
welcome. I'm doing great now. I'm so excited. So I just want to talk about, art and being black and being a black artist and, kind of what your thoughts are on, what might be the limitations and the boundaries that are kind of keeping us, holding us back as a lover of different kinds of art. So I want to start first with as an avid reader with a quite an extensive library of books that you have. What is your preferred genre to read?
I'll tell you that it probably, and because of my upbringing and experience and even education in the classroom and on the street, so to speak, it probably is history, in particular biblical history, but his nonfiction is probably the thing that I like most in that regard. And the reality is that it seems to be stranger than fiction a lot of the times. And a lot of the things that we see now in so-called real life are just a repeat of what's happened in history. So it's like it's nothing new, but it just is fascinating to see it in a different era. So that's probably the most, if I could describe it in that way, that's probably the BN. But I do love fiction, and I don't know whether it's literature, but it would be mysteries, that type of thing. Unfortunately, they end up normally being some kind of murder mystery. That seems to be what most mysteries are about. But any kind of mystery, I really am fascinated by, and I want to solve it. I want to know how did that work, that kind of thing. Some things really that I think I most am drawn.
Do you like to try to solve the mystery before you get to the end of the book?
Absolutely. I mean, corny as it sounds, I am an avid Arthur Conan Doyle lover of world famous Sherlock Holmes, the fictional detective, built upon a doctor's ability to observe and to infer from, his practice to infer different facts and different details of a particular incident, and in that case, a crime or some kind of inexplicable issue or problem that he's able to solve by taking what he knows and what he sees or observes and inferring, not guessing, not having a hunch, but inferring what actually
Oh, I think I
has
lost
happened.
you.
No, you don't do this. This doesn't make sense. Okay, you wouldn't do that. It sometimes ruins it. I've already figured it doesn't make sense. That's out of character. That's out of place. That wouldn't happen in real life, so on and so forth. So sometimes it can ruin things. But when you're reading, oh, your imagination is flowing. So yes, that's what I do.
So you don't let them get to the end and tell you what happened. You tell them what happened. Interesting.
It has to be really hidden pretty well for me not to have figured it out right in the first half hour up to midpoint. I don't get past midpoint without knowing where it's going or who's done what. Very few like that. Um, Very few surprises in certainly in viewed material. Written material, you might be able to kind of hold back some things like that was of that nature. Was I was a little surprised by some things. So, but
Interesting.
nevertheless, I love it. I love it.
What is your favorite book?
I have to tell you that based upon my calling and my experience, I would say the Bible, if you take it as a book, is my favorite. Now I have books that are in there that are my favorite to read, but that would probably be my favorite. And that's basically John, Hebrews, and believe it or not, the book of Jude. Obviously, I've studied and read and even preached from Pauline epistles, and even some Old Testament. But those those books give you the long and short of it of the gospel, its power, its redemption story, and with a tremendous simplicity but beautiful language in those scriptures. And so those are my favorites there. But in terms of what I'll call secular, my favorite is, believe it or not, the autobiography of Malcolm X by Alex Haley. And I have to say, I mean, I read that a long while ago, and it remains my favorite, and just the raw power of it. And anybody who's seen the film by Spike Lee should absolutely, or even before you see them film by Spike Lee, read the autobiography of Malcolm X, because it speaks to the American. You said about Black folks. It speaks to the one of the American experiences, unfortunately, too frequent an experience in that era, and in some cases today. But that's a whole nother story. And it's such one of my favorite things to see, and that's why I like history somewhat in autobiography, nonfiction, is that it's a before and after picture, a story of transformation, not just transition, but transformation. And I love a great before and after picture. That's my favorite thing. I'm always talking to my wife, your mom, that one of my favorite things to watch or see, whether I'm reading it or whether I'm seeing it on television or in film, is a great I guess they call it rags or riches, or just a story where a person starts here and they go to here, and their true strength, power, self-efficacy, and everything coming forth. And that's what the autobiography of Malcolm X. Of course, like all heroes, if you will, there's a tragedy involved. There's I can't. I show you a tragedy is a quote. I can't remember who said it now. It's a classic rap, but it ends in great tragedy obviously for his family, but also for us as a nation, because of all that could have been from our inference of what he could have done. So, but that's the way things are. But the contemporary thing, my favorite book right now that I recommend to anybody and everybody, I think I told you about it, and anybody who'll listen to me, and even your mom who listened for a little while and said, it's tough to listen to. It's Thick, which is a collection of essays. Tressie, Autumn. I mean, don't tell you, I'm just in love with her writing and when she speaks, and just the way she puts things in place. And when I read that, there was revelation in it, or illumination at least. It wasn't a religious experience, but it was really a powerful emotional experience. And once again, You're talking about nonfiction. You're talking about something where you can see the history and really made some great points. Some of it is opinion, and some of it is just basic facts that have been proven out by the stats and even by my own wife and by my own experience. What we've seen, and so I recommend it highly to anybody and everybody, and whatever culture you're from, whatever culture you claim, take a look at it because it's an eye opener and to give you some understanding of some things that make you scratch your head.
Excellent. I will add that to my reading list. So is that the last book you
Yeah,
read?
that's
Okay.
the last book I. No, it's not the last book I read. All right, I listened to things. I asked your mom for it. I heard about it, seen some. She observed Dr. McMillan Cottom read some pieces of it and be interviewed about it. So I said, I got to see this. I got to look at this. So I was going to go get it at Barnes and Noble, but your mom had she had some credits at what is it audiobook, something like that. And I said, yeah. So she bought it for me. I downloaded it and I listened to it. I couldn't put it down. I had to pull over to the side of the road, finish chapter because it's so compelling. I'm telling you, maybe it's me. Maybe I was so, I don't know, maybe my level of knowledge and ignorance was so low that this came as almost a revelation to me. I said, oh man. And some things were heartbreaking. I mean, heartbreaking. They really make you feel too close to her, really, because you fall in love with her and her personality and her family. And she shares that so willingly. But it's amazing. That's one that I listened to last, but actually touching it, piece of paper, a traditional book, was something that you probably would have thought I never would. It was a murder mystery called 31 Bedford Street, and it would put you in mind of. Most recently, it was a hit show on HBO, I think it was. What's the name of that? Oh, Katie Berensky was in it. The Gilded Age.
Oh yeah,
Your
yeah.
mom's favorite century, late 19th century New York, and and just all of they, it is a work of fiction, but it's based upon characters of history, real life characters, and what could be more dynamic, what could be more compelling, and you know, I loved it. That one I figured out though, what had happened, and they told you kind of up front what had happened. So I knew the person who was accused hadn't done it and all of that. It was it was quite a thing, and it had characters. With films today, when you're watching a film, and maybe sometimes plays, although in plays they can emote, you can see the facial expressions, and they really you can feel it because it's live, right? But in film, you really got to work a bit to get the emotions out to really provide that depth of the character. They come across as two-dimensional frequently, but in this, when you read it, you can get all of character. It had flawed a flawed heroine. It had folks doing dirty deeds, and it had honorable folks, even from our culture, from the time working in. You mentioned constraints and holdbacks and things like that, but um, I know it sounds corny, and I'm so impressed by our ancestors, the folks who have come before us, who it'd be easy to get choked up with it, who in every human endeavor pushed what they needed to do to get what they wanted to and where they wanted to. Sometimes imitating the other culture, sometimes surpassing that, being known to the point of being destroyed. Somebody else picked up the baton with it, and that's definitely the arts. I mean, the arts has been saving grace for many, to say the least. And I don't know whether there's a people who are meant to be actors and performers and things like that. It's just the excellence is so amazing, and there's so many, and the depth of the ability is. I mean, one of the things that I think is so uh, um, impressive to me in our community for sure is they'll take over social media. You'll be doing things that are funny, things that are serious, things that are instructive, things that are so deep, things of political message, activism, and all manner of things. And these folks you'll never hear from, let alone the people who are actual professionals like yourself, and who will nail the thing, knock it out the park, you know. And I'm just so impressed by that these people undaunted by anything and will to get it on the screen, to get it on the stage, to get it on paper. So it's something where the book that I'm writing, I got to get it out because it's the least that I can do. Because my ancestors and the contemporary folks today have faced down every challenge and knock the thing out of the park. So I could do no less than at least finish the thing, do my darn best to get it out there, and hopefully people will. But I gotta birth that thing because just so many folks have done it. I know I went way past talking about what I last read, but I was just saying because, and that's where history, even though this was fictional, with some history put in, it really can be inspiring because you see, I always put myself the old church mother looking out in the distance and her hands on her hips and saying, "Look where he brought me from," and I see that with my culture, with my people, and it's unique, And there's the glorious and the ghastly, but it's amazing. It's amazing, and the writing. Is replete with experts and people who you say to yourself, how in the world did they do that? And I'm not blowing your horn just to blow your horn because it's your own show. But I remember when I saw a show. It was near the harbor. It was, I guess, near a park over there in DC. You know, the place where there's that what do you call that thing? The Ferris wheel.
Mm-hmm.
But it was
Yeah.
at a place where it was kind of like a theater in the round because we were on all sides, and you had done that, and there was something in me. I said, "Oh my God, she's an actress for real." You know what I'm saying? And not that I didn't think that was the case, but I saw the professionalism. I saw the ability to change, to give depth to somebody who didn't exist unless it was you. You wasn't playing you. You were playing this character, and it brought it to life. And so I've seen that. I've seen that with you, certainly, and it was like something that turned. And of course, I was very proud. I mean, I would clap anyway, But I'm saying I could tell anybody, oh yeah, she's pro. Yeah, she knows how to do this, right? Thousands are there out there who do that. You see them on TikTok, Instagram, and various other social media, as well as right on television and the stage and all of that. So it's really a sight to see, and the history of the people is replete with great work and ability. I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna put the mic down for a second.
So, okay. Well,
You
you
know,
opened.
you know me.
I mean, listen, I was just gonna let you go. But you did open the door and you talked a little bit about your own, your writing. Can you tell us a little bit about, just what you're writing about, and then, kind of what inspires you, if you can elaborate more.
Thank you for that opportunity, and I try to be less long-winded. Um, it's a it's nonfiction, of course, in instructional or self-help. I've been trained in, and to a certain extent, I think, born to process procedures. I mean, that's the kind of way, people are wired different ways, and my wiring is okay. Uh, it's good news and bad news, right? I need structure, and the structure Um, I need a beginning in any story. I can't do too many artsy stories for me because I need to have um, a beginning, a middle, and an end. The protagonist and perhaps antagonist, a situation, a middle point, couple of flips and plot points, and comes down to the end. Gets the girl, or the girl gets the guy, or the guy gets the girl, and they win at the end. Triumph. But in a great way, in a more abstract sense. It's interesting, right? Juxtaposition of structure in abstract is life and working or living someone's life. There is still a process also, and of course, psychologists and psychiatrists, have developed a framework for how people live. And one of the things that happened to me long time ago, I just seemed to be stumbling. I just couldn't figure out what the heck I was going to do, and I actually prayed a prayer. I prayed a prayer. I said, "Listen, you got to give me something, God. You got to give me a way to approach this thing." Because just the way I was raised and the way that I brought up and just who I am, I couldn't figure it. And I won't go into my story other than to say that I needed something. And so I prayed that prayer, and I was really at my wit's end. And then I got some keys to embrace. And I was also exposed. I was working at Citigroup a long while ago, and I was exposed to, I think it was after that, Seven Habits, and that kind of coalesced into what I had developed prior to these habits was 9 keys. And those keys were fantastic for me. When I embraced those and executed them, it my life was absolutely in order. It was better. I could perform better. I was in order. And it dawned upon me to obviously to embrace them, but also find a way to share them. And so I've spent so many years collecting those items, information, and writing my own things, that at one point I started the manuscript years ago, believe it or not. And now I'm at the point where I am almost finished manuscript, and it basically is a roadmap. It's not the only roadmap, but it is a roadmap for someone. If you're looking for some structure, if you're looking for a way to, it's not so much live your life, but to a process for developing, a process for performing in your life, this can help you, right?
That's
If
awesome.
you want to do something positive. And I got to tell you, I mean, for me, I'm a believer. So uh, definitely some divine intervention in terms of what I've written. And I've let some people hear it, let some people see it, and they thought it was great. I don't know whether they were blowing smoke on my skirt or anything, but I said, okay. And here's the thing, though. The simplest thing and some of the most profound things are not hidden. They're right before you, but you never risk. What happens is that there's a saying that familiarity breeds contempt. Well, one of the aspects of that is that the thing that you see every day, you don't see the awesomeness of it. Things that you see every day, or the people that you see every day, the things that you do every day, some of them are incredible, incredible. But you see it every day. So the sky's blue; it's got some clouds in it. Whatever. You know what I mean? But if you took a moment to just consider, oh my God, look at the sky, look at those clouds around you, and just look at a person up close and just see them. You know how much it took to make a person of average intelligence, normal perception, and functioning. They don't have to be the president. I'm talking about just a regular person. And that's one of the things, if more people appreciated that, those so-called mundane things, then maybe willing to destroy themselves or others. But I don't want to preach too much, but that's a key thing. And so what 9 Keys does is bring you to a point where you can appreciate things. It gives you a way to kind of approach a mindset. Um, Less a roadmap and more of the guidelines as to how you can approach effectively anything. And if you can adhere to those, some of them or all of them, um, you're gonna, I mean, you're awesome already as because you're a person, right? Somewhat functional. But if you can adhere to these principles, look out. And that's not something. The secret, is people repeat it all the time, and it's necessary to repeat it. And no difference in these 9 keys will give you some a bit of guidelines that will take you to the next level, and whatever that level is. And so I've been trained in process improvement. I've been trained in quality management. I've been, formally trained in organizational management, development, and that type of thing, people, places, and things. And it does that. It helps to do that for you. It's not the only thing that could do it. You could get any number of books that are self-help and all of that. And I recommend everybody take a look at Stephen Covey's 7 Habits. I mean, it's now there's nothing. There's things where there's a aha moment in it. I'm sure you're going to have an aha moment as you go through it, and the 7 habits, which seem oh so simple and would have occurred to you anyway. But that brother puts it together in such a way that says, "Oh wow, it was life changing when I went through because I saw, oh, there is a way you can do this." And so some people pick Machiavelli, and some people take 7 habits. And hopefully in a little while, they'll be able to take the 9 keys, and use those to make a better world, a better person, better world, better existence.
Excellent. Well, I look forward to getting an advanced copy. So before I let you
Certainly.
go,
Okay.
I wanted to ask you because you have always told me to, ask questions and to really, listen to, the stories that those who have come before you, elders, my
Absolutely.
mother, what is the importance of storytelling? Why is that? Specifically, why is the oral tradition so important for our community?
It's absolutely important. It's important for a whole society. It is particularly important for our community. It has been for me, and it's for you, and for others in general, because all of the other vehicles, the telling of your story cannot be so dependent on the artifice that is the book or the videotape or the audio tape or whatever. It can't be so dependent upon, because those things they can be disrupted, corrupted, or can be minimized in terms of access due to funds. But us speaking together, whether in a family function, or just over coffee on a Sunday afternoon, or just on the phone on Tuesday night after work, um, in all those situations, those scenarios where I can tell you about our history to the extent that I know, as far back as we can go, generations, is so necessary, so important. And the oral tradition allows that to happen in the tiniest and the smallest kinds of ways. When you tell that story to a kid in the family at the family reunion, see they come from something, and by virtue of those stories, and they also looking at some of the older folks, they know, I don't know whether they see it as somewhere with the older folks, but there's a history. Once again, for me, it appeals to me. There's a beginning, a middle, and since it's continuing, it may be an end for me, but it's not an end to our story. So that and it has a way in and of itself of sustaining you. And let me tell you something else. One other aspect of it, besides sustaining you and preserving you, because if you let someone else tell your story, then you'll cease to be at some point. You'll cease to be. There's a old church. I don't know. It's a saying. I think it's a part of a song where people in praise and worship or testimony service, and the person will say, "You can't tell it. Let me tell it. Let me tell my story. Let me give my testimony." And it's so important for us to give those testimonies to each other. Listen, some of the stories are awful. I mean, awful, ghastly, terrible. I'm not talking about somebody else doing something to us or us doing stuff to ourselves, but and that's all in there. That's part of the history, but it's also that excellence that I was referring to before, and that which and so we remember those things. Now, understand, some of this is the conveyance of facts at the same time as biased impression, but that's all part of it. There are things that become apocryphal. You know, get generations down the line, you get less and less firsthand accounts, but that's okay. That's okay. That's okay because we're getting that fresh stories coming along, the fresh stories that are coming along of excellence and triumph and great things. And I feel bad for someone who's not getting that because I got that. I got that from my folks from New Jersey, from North Carolina, from New York City. Listen, I came from I came from an Army family. I was an Army brat, traveled around a little bit, and came on up here into New York from Fayetteville, North Click, and grew up in what was called Fort Apache territory, and another garden spot in Harlem. So came up in those places, and everything wasn't great, but everything wasn't terrible. We have survived, have been preserved, and I was those stories. Those things have preserved me, have inspired me. Yeah, you can do it. You can make it. Yeah, So I think that has to continue. It must continue. When we become silent to one another, our need to hear and to we're lost. We're lost. And I hope that never happens. You talk about a quote unquote cancel culture or things like that. I think the key is keep the dialogue running. There's some things that you may or may not agree with, but keep that dialogue running. Keep telling those great stories about great things that have happened. There's enough bad out there, but keep telling the good stories. And I think important for the particularly African Americans, Black folks around the world, because it's a world history. It's a world history, and it is amazing every time.
Okay. We have to go, but I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your day to talk to me and join us on this episode of Artistically Black. A happy pre-Father's Day, a happy Father's Day to you. I love you very much.
Thank you, dear. I love you too.
Thank you so much. This was fantastic. And we'll have you back on because I want to talk about the next time. I do want to kind of talk about growing up in New York City through the 60s, through the 80s, just to kind of get that perspective, because that's knowledge and stories and experiences that are so profound and remarkable, and just seeing how certain things happen. So we'll talk about that in the next episode.
I don't know how profound it is. Pretty corny, I'm not that interesting, but it was what it was, and I wrote my autobiography for a course that I was in. I had to, and you just see the cycles that you run into, different things that keep repeating, but it's important. It's so important. I'll be happy to tell you about. I'll be happy to discuss it. I'd love to come back. I'm sorry to run on if I ran on. My apologies to
no
Virginia.
apologies
But,
necessary.
that's how I do. Enjoyed this so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And if you don't do nothing else, get thick and read it. Tell me
We
what you
will.
think.
We will put that on the reading list. Thank you so much for
And
joining us
if you
for
can,
this episode.
yeah. If
Um,
you can get her on the show.
Okay, I will do that.
Okay.
Before we
Okay.
go, I wanted to say
Get them.
Fantastic Girl and the Math Monster opens June 19th at Adventure Theater. If you purchase tickets before June 19th, you can use the discount code that's displayed here, DAD25, for any tickets in the run. As long as you purchase them before June 19th, you can get 25% off. So please go out there. It's a great, great show about STEM and young girls. Please go out and see Fantastic Girl and the Math Monster at Adventure Theater, opening June 19th. Also, if you would like to make a donation to Adventure Theater, please visit the website at atmtc.org. No donation is too big or too small. A happy early Father's Day to all the fathers, especially my dad. I love you. Thank you for joining me. This has been another episode of Artistically Black. Until next time, stay artistically and stay black. Thank you, everybody. Have a good day.